Welcome and hello. This is Todd Otto, Area Superintendent for Secondary Schools for Visalia Unified. I want to thank you for giving me a few minutes of your time. I'd much prefer to be there personally to present this information to you, but the confines of time and space just won't permit that, so I'll do the best I can through technology here. I know that you're all busy and that your time is valuable, so I'll be as efficient as I can here. As you can see, the topic for the presentation is the Common Core transition. It's something that I'm sure that everyone here in the room is interested in, and something that I know many of you have questions about. I'll do the best I can in the next few minutes to help all of you understand where we are in the secondary schools with this important transition. The goals of the presentation today are three. First off, I want to provide you with a little bit of background on the Common Core state standards, where they came from and how we got to where we are today. Second, I'd like to provide an overview of how we're going to transition to Common Core and Visalia Unified, specifically for secondary. And third, I'd like to provide some information about the role of professional learning communities, or PLCs, during this transition. And I think that you'll see as we go along here that the PLCs have a very, very important role to play in this process. So, leading off here, where did Common Core state standards come from? Well, a review of education form in the late 20th century reveals that we've undergone a number of different changes or initiatives over the course of the past 50, 75 years or so. Starting off in 1947 with the Truman Report, during the Eisenhower administration, the Committee on Education Beyond the High School, the Kennedy and Johnson administrations, the Task Force on Education, and then in 1983 in the Reagan administration, the A Nation at Risk Report. These are all important pieces here, and they help explain or kind of lay out how we got to where we are now. Reaching a little bit more recently, you've got the 1980 standards movement, and as you folks all know, educational standards describe what each student is expected to know and be able to do at the completion of a course and also at the completion of a public school education. The goals of the standards movement were pretty simple. Number one, to ensure rigor in instruction. Number two, to ensure consistency in instruction across classrooms. And number three, to ensure that there was articulation across courses so that the current course feeds into the subsequent course and is supported by the previous course in a logical progression. Prior to 1998, the standards movement was voluntary. States and school districts could choose to participate or not. In 1998, however, in California, the state adopted formally a set of standards. With those adopted standards came a set of assessments, accountability measures, including the very familiar to us STAR assessment, including the CSTs, and the California High School Exit Exam. The accountability system for the state is known as the Academic Performance Index, a number that we wait for annually and we're very, very familiar with the outcomes of. In support of the adoption of the standards, we have new textbooks that are developed by publishers and teacher and principal training to make sure that folks implement standards appropriately and teach the appropriate things to ensure that achievement occurs relative to our systems. 2001, coming a little farther forward, No Child Left Behind is adopted during the Bush administration. This is the federal accountability system, and the accountability measure there is AYP, or Adequate Yearly Progress. Under this system here, schools and school districts can fall under program improvement status. The goal here is to ensure equity across schools across the nation, and also a target has been established for levels of proficiency. These levels of proficiency are the rationale or the basis for the AYP indicators. Advancing into just about the present here, we enter the era of the Common Core state standards. Now, Common Core state standards were the result of an initiative started by two groups in the U.S. One of these is the National Governors Association, and the second organization is the Council of Chief State School Officers. And in 2010, they brought forth the initiative to establish Common Core, and many states rapidly jumped on the bandwagon. California is one of 45 states that adopted Common Core state standards. The state of California did so in August of 2010 for English language arts and math. We're still in the process of working through formalization of Common Core. You'll notice here that the math framework will be adopted in November of 2013, just a few months from now, and the English language arts framework will be adopted in May of 2014. The Common Core State Standards Initiative has some very explicit goals for the project. There are five. First, to unify expectations nationwide for students. Second, to ensure that every student in the nation has equal opportunity to access education and to achieve. Third, to support global economic competitiveness for the United States. Fourth, to set world-class standards for all kids in support of that competitiveness. And fifth, to ensure that all students are college and career ready upon graduation. And the concept of college and career readiness is an important one that comes up again and again in the context of Common Core, so it bears a little deeper explanation. It's important to know that Common Core really is all about college and career readiness. From the perspective of definition, college ready means that a student is ready to enter post-secondary education without remediation, and there's a wide range of options for post-secondary education. Second, career ready means ready to enter employment in a field or a position that has the opportunity for advancement. Not a dead-end job, not a low-end job permanently, but in a position that offers some chain of advancement possibilities. It's important to note that the academic skills needed for college and career are the same. It's not college or career, it's college and career. Common Core is rooted very firmly in the concept that preparing for one means preparing for the other. And there's great depth and great power in that statement. So, with those things in place, with the background in place, how will we transition to Common Core state standards? It's important, I think, for everyone in the room to know that our transition to Common Core state standards represents an advancement to the next level. It's an evolution to the next level. We don't intend to take apart everything that we're currently doing and swap it out for a whole different set of things because the old things were wrong. We believe firmly that the work that we've done to this point is good work, valid work, and should not be abandoned. We're ready to take another step up a progression, not to step out of the path that we're in to adopt a whole new pathway. Why is this so? Take a look at the progression of scores on Academic Performance Index for Visalia Unified over the past 11 years. What you see here charted out is a steady and strong progression of performance from 624 in 2002 to 785 in 2012. We've worked hard to get here. Our kids have achieved. More and more kids are proficient than ever before. We don't seek to abandon the hard work that got us to this level. If we look at API scores within context, the context here being state and county as comparison groups, we're also showing strong performance. The blue bars here represent VUSD performance district-wide as an API, from 2006 to 2012. Clearly, we lead the county, and if you look at the red line there, that's state performance, we are closing the gap with the state. This implies, again, that our work is good, strong, and solid. Kids are achieving, and we don't want to lose the advantages that we've gained through hard work here. Looking at this again from the perspective of students who are advanced in English language arts, just as a snapshot, from 2007 to 2012, the number of students, the raw number of students who are reaching advanced levels in English language arts and in other subjects continues to grow, from 2,791 in 2007 to almost 5,000 in 2012. Again, evidence of strong program, good work, and kids that are achieving. We don't want to lose these advantages. State Superintendent for Public Instruction Tom Torlakson would agree with that. He recently sent out a news release that contained the quote that you see before you, and it reads as such: "The Common Core state standards are designed to keep the best of California's former standards, to replace what's outdated, and to provide a clear focus on teaching students critical thinking and problem-solving skills." It's moving kids more strongly towards those critical thinking and problem-solving skills that Common Core is all about. That's the work that we're on. That's the level and the next step on our progression. I'd like to underscore again the belief that the change to Common Core is evolutionary, not revolutionary in nature. And actually the development of cell phones lends a reasonable metaphor here. As you use a smartphone, occasionally you receive upgrades to the operating system. Those upgrades are really similar to the upgrade that we're going to receive here through the transition to Common Core. An upgrade represents a next level of utility in the tool at hand here. So we're not moving from one cell phone to another cell phone. We're actually going to retain the same cell phone and simply improve the operating system to receive a better level of utility and a better level of efficiency and a higher level of product in the end. So again, Common Core, evolutionary, not revolutionary. To build on the success we've had in supporting student achievement at increasingly higher levels, we must be aware of four things. First, we must understand the nature of the new standards. Much of what we see in the new standards is familiar, but there are changes, some subtle, some very explicit, that we must understand and adapt to if we're to help our students attain the levels of critical thinking and problem solving that the assessments associated with Common Core will present. Second, we must develop a strong structure for instruction. This means that we must work to adapt existing materials to the new standards. As you probably know, we won't have approved Common Core textbooks for at least a few years. This means that we must use existing instructional materials, which are good materials, and some bridge materials to support instruction under Common Core. We are confident that we have a good process in place to ensure that teachers will be able to be successful in making these adaptations. Third, we must continue to use powerful teaching methods. Our work to this date in direct instruction and also in cooperative learning will help us continue to support and to leverage student achievement. Finally, we must refine our assessments. This means we must review and revise our district and our classroom assessments to ensure that solid formative feedback is provided to students and also to teachers. As we make the transition to Common Core state standards, we must look at two things very closely here. The first of these is focus. Focus means that we develop individual courses that address the depth and breadth of the standards relevant for that particular course. Beyond that, we need to address coherence. And coherence means that we look at the sequence of courses from the totality of the kids' experience through school, from K through 12, to ensure that the courses that a student takes proceed from one to the next in a logical order. In other words, that instruction in a previous course supports instruction in a later course, and that all instruction and learning supports an outcome at the end of the progression. I've spent some time now talking about how things are going to be different under Common Core state standards. And I think it's important to note that one of the advantages that we have is we have some very familiar and very strong structures that we're going to use to help us make that transition in a powerful way. That familiar structure is our content assessment teams. These teams are composed of teacher leaders from each department and work under the coordination of the Visalia Unified District Curriculum Department. These teachers are critically important to our process for curriculum development and implementation. They're involved in the development of instructional units, pacing guides, and district assessments. These teacher leaders are a two-way conduit for information between our curriculum department and individual school departments and subject teams. I'll use a simple graphic here to illustrate how the content assessment teams work. The white box that you see on the screen there represents a subject grouping. Let's just say it's Algebra 1, for example, at a high school. And each of the colored dots there represents a teacher in that group. And across the school, there's a number of these groupings. They can be known as PLCs, for example. So that would be one school, and here we have another school with a similar groupings. And again, on the left, it might be Algebra 1, then it might go to Algebra 2, and it might go to Pre-Calc, and then Calculus. We developed across district. You have schools across, groupings across the district of teachers working in common areas, but they don't work commonly together. The purpose of the content assessment teams is to bring representatives from these groups together. So the white dot here represents the content assessment team grouping at the district level. So bring teachers from each school from a similar assignment to consider the issues at hand. And again, we're talking about development of instructional units, pacing guides, and district assessments. And we do these across subjects across the district. So what we have here is a very powerful process for getting information, drawing information from teachers who are experts in their subject, bringing them together to discuss the issues at hand deeply, and then to come to a conclusion about where we need to be. When that's done, we then have these folks return to their school sites and bring the information gained through collaboration back to the schools. An elegantly simple, very powerful process that relies greatly on the professional expertise of the teachers involved. These folks truly are. I've been talking about the structure of the new standards and the structure that we're going to use to work to understand the standards and disseminate information about the standards. Now it's time to get down to specifics on timeline. As we look ahead, we're going to have a lot of work to do in a relatively short amount of time. And we have a very busy summer planned for much of this work. In looking at the work of the content assessment teams this summer, the lead teachers are going to be involved in understanding the new standards. They're going to be involved in the development of instructional units, and they're going to be involved in identifying the relevant instructional materials and bridge materials that are necessary to support instruction. This is exactly the process I described previously, and it's now been established that the content assessment teams are going to be the folks that will initiate that work for us as a district. Rolling forward into the remainder of 2013, the lead teachers will begin course design and development, and they'll also work to develop assessments. Again, continuing the work that typically we do within the content assessment teams. Rolling forward into the spring of 2014, we'll have new courses that are developed, adopted by the school board, the important final piece before we actually deploy the courses. And then we'll have, at that point, the site collaboration teams or the professional learning communities, PLCs, start to develop lessons to make these units real, to make the adoption and the adaptation into Common Core a real thing for kids across the district. By the fall of 2014, we expect to have all new courses implemented, and by the spring of 2015, we will have kids taking those new state assessments. Now, about those new state assessments, schools making the move to Common Core we're required to affiliate with one of two consortia for assessment. California has chosen to go with the Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium, and these are the folks that are developing the assessments for us. The map here shows the states that are involved or affiliated with Smarter Balanced. The green and blue boxes are both Smarter Balanced associated. The gray states here went with PARC, which was the other consortium. Now, about the new assessments, and I know there's a great deal of concern about the content of these assessments. These obviously are our targets for instruction. We do know quite a bit about what the tests look like. In general, we know that the tests are more rigorous than the current STAR tests. We know that the tests include some extended response, and they require demonstration of deeper critical thinking and problem-solving skills. It's possible to go online to look at example test samples, and what you see there is considerably different from what we're familiar with. What we have relatively limited information about is the methodology for the delivery of the tests. We do know that technology is going to play a significant role in how kids are going to be tested. We don't have a lot of information yet about the level of technology necessary, but what we do have are schools in the district that are piloting the assessments this testing season, so we'll have a sense for what we need to do. Further, our folks at the district office are keeping a close look at what's necessary and getting information from the state about where we need to be. It's also important to note that with regard to testing methodology, there's going to be some selected response items on the test. That's multiple choice and similar kinds of things. There's going to be constructed response, where the kids have to develop answers both short and lengthy. And there's also going to be a performance assessment piece here that'll be completed across multiple testing sessions. It could be multiple days or even multiple sessions within a day. These things represent for us uncharted territory. So again, we're keeping a close look on how this is going to be, and we'll report to teachers as soon as we know significant developments in the testing methodology. Now, last piece here. Let's talk a little bit about the role of professional learning communities in the transition to Common Core. You folks have been working in PLCs now for an extended period of time. It's been a focus this year, certainly, at the secondary schools, and the work that we've done there should allow us to pay off for us hugely as we make the transition more formally into Common Core. In your PLCs, what we expect will happen is that once the content assessment teams have done their work, you again will replicate their work within your PLCs. You'll understand the new standards, develop formative assessments, classroom assessments. You'll develop lessons that flesh out the established units, and you'll also identify those methods and strategies that best implement the instruction at hand. That's really the work of teachers. That's the professional work that we're going to rely on teachers to do effectively, and we have great confidence in your ability to do that effectively. The PLC will become increasingly more important as we get deeper and deeper into this process. The final thing I'd like to touch on today is just a real quick look at the VUSD Blueprint for Student Success. Hopefully you've seen this graphic before. It encompasses really the structure within which instruction occurs in Visalia Unified. At the very center of the diagram, you see Goal 1 and Goal 2. Goal 1 is an expectation that students will increase a minimum of one performance level a year until they reach advanced levels. And Goal 2 is that English learners will increase a minimum of one language proficiency level until they're classified fully English proficient. These are lofty goals, goals that are worthy of the kids that we work with, and goals that we believe we can achieve with every single kid that we have in our domain. Around the goal bubble, you'll see 5 additional bubbles that represent the assets and the work that we have. You talk about time in the top left-hand corner there. That's instructional time and engagement to make sure that we make maximum use of time. In the upper right-hand corner, we can talk about content, and that's really where the work on Common Core rests. Go to the lower right there, instructional practices. This is where DII, Directed Interactive Instruction, rests, and also engagement structures for cooperative learning. We talk about assessment and the role of assessment that has in providing formative information to kids and to teachers about the quality of work that's being done and where new work needs to be done. We talk about intervention and acceleration. That's our response to intervention model. And also our programs like our ELD program or our special ed program rest. Surrounding all of that is a green circle. That green circle is intended to represent a shell. That shell is where the professional learning communities rest. And the PLCs, again, are the thing that wraps around all of the work that we do. It's the place where we engage teachers in all of the elements here within the blueprint. As I've mentioned before, the work that's being done on PLCs is a critical piece of work. We've been doing this now for a while. We're not fully all the way where we need to be with PLCs, but we've made important steps in creating PLCs that are strong across the district. Your work in all of these areas is critical to the success of our organization and critical to the increased student achievement. So I want to thank you very much for the time that you've given me here today. I'm going to turn the meeting back over to your principal. I'm sure there's going to be some question or comment about what I've presented to you here today, and I wish you folks all good luck in that conversation and good luck in our transition to Common Core. Again, we have great confidence in the ability of our schools and our teachers and our kids to do great work, and I thank you right now for everything that you've done so far. See you later.